Hello mate, and welcome to another video. If you're wondering why my voice is so chill this video, it's because I wanted this one to be a little bit more laid back. So what we're going to talk about today, very briefly, is static. What does static mean with respect to variables and methods in classes? If you've ever watched a number of Unity tutorials or Java tutorials, what you would have seen is people using the keyword static for various things when they're coding classes and class methods. So what I would like to do is give you an example of how one would use static and try my best to explain what static actually means. Let's say that you wanted to figure out how much tax a person wanted to pay, and you wanted to repeat that exercise for every member of the population of your country. What you can do is you can have a people class or a person class, and in that class you obviously want to know how much that person earns. So their salary would be an instance variable. Now, when I say instance variable, what I mean is if you define a person class, when you create an object from that class, i.e. an instance of that class, you need to input the data for the instance fields, the instance variables. So every single person who you create an object for will have a different salary. Yes, some might have the same, but ultimately a salary is something that's different for each individual person, much like the name of each person would also be an instance variable, their address, and anything else that's specific to that individual person. Now, as well as instance variables, we can also have what we call class variables, and they're variables that are the same for every single person. So, for example, in our fictional country, we have income tax being the same for every single person. Now, I know that that's not necessarily the case in the country where you live, but ultimately, for this example, it works just fine. So what you would have is a static variable called income tax, and it would be the same for every single person. And then if you change the value of income tax, i.e. the percentage that each person has to pay, you only need to change the variable once, and it changes for every single person. So a static variable is or known as a class variable, is something that is specific to the class, not specific to the instances of the class. You can also have static methods. So for example, you could have a method that you call such as change income tax, which would actually change the value of the static variable, or applies the income tax method to each individual class, and it just allows you to differentiate between things that you don't want to be changing between each person and things that you do. So ultimately that is why static variables and static classes are used. Now you can also have static constant variables, which are variables that are accessible to everybody and never change. So for example, if you wanted to apply physics to your people class, you could have a gravity variable. Gravity is always constant and is never changes, so you could have it as a static final variable, which would be 9.98 meters per second squared. Now that's never going to change, it's always going to remain constant, so we would declare that as a final variable, but it's also a static variable because every single object references it, so it would be static and final. Hopefully that helped you understand what static actually means. I am interested to know if you've realised. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. But until then, you take damn good care of yourselves, alright? Bye bye.